All right, moving on with our next discussion now. President Muhammadu Buhari assumed office at a time when Nigerian states were heavily distressed and could not pay workers' salaries.
Certainly.
Yes,
and in July 2015, just a few months after his inauguration, President Buhari approved a comprehensive relief package, including sharing of fresh allocations, granting of soft loans to end the lingering burden of unpaid workers' salaries in several states.
Now, the first bailout fund was 338 billion naira. It was released to bankrupt states. 27 states applied to access the loan facility, and states that met the requirements were given bailout. Now, the first states that received the bailout were Zamfara, Osun, and Kwara. The loans were given out at an interest rate of 9% over a 20-year period, except for Ogun State that opted for a 10-year period. And other states that received bailout are Abia, Adamawa, Bauchi, Bayelsa, Benue, Borno, Cross River, Delta, Ebonyi, Edo, Ekiti, Enugu, Gombe, Imo, Katsina, Kebbi, Kogi, Nasarawa, Niger, Ogun, Ondo, Oyo, Plateau, and Sokoto states.
And one would say that's almost all the states in
all
Nigeria.
All the states.
Well, allegations of misuse and diversion trailed the first bailout. Investigations by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, revealed that Zamfara State, which applied for 30 billion naira but got 10 billion, was not owing civil servants and pensioners any arrears, as at the time the federal government released the bailout funds.
Indeed, now that's another matter.
That's another twist to the whole story.
States actually claimed
that they couldn't pay salaries.
They couldn't pay. Well, they could actually pay. Now, in 2016, the federal government released another bailout after the first one failed to produce the desired result. The facility attracted a 9% interest rate and was to be accessed by states after meeting 22 stringent conditions.
All right.
But do they meet those conditions?
I'm going to put that stringent on parentheses. How stringent?
How stringent were they?
Yeah. All right. Joining us in the studio is the National Coordinator, Change Agents of Nigeria, Olukayode Salako. It's nice to have you join us right now.
Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning. Now, Nigerians have been asking questions. First bailout, second bailout, and so on. It just keeps coming. It just keeps coming. But as it is, as a Nigerian sitting down and watching, how embarrassed are you, or how interesting does this sound to you when states have to be bailed out now and it's becoming continuous?
Well, I couldn't have felt less embarrassed or embarrassed less, because I'm a typical Nigerian. I've lived all my life here. And I know that there is no way what some of those states are suffering from right now, there is no way they won't suffer from it. Because financial recklessness has been the tradition, you know, financial impropriety tradition in Nigeria. Tradition to spend the resources of the people recklessly has been the tradition. So when there is reckless spending, distribution of the resources of the people among the few, then you call it corruption. So because there has been acute corruptive tendencies in the Nigerian socio-economic polity, so there is no way some of these states won't run down. Who are the perpetrators of these corruptive tendencies? The state governors, the local government chairmen, the people who run our government, the ministers, the lawmakers, even the president himself. The people in government have been the ones mismanaging the resources of Nigeria. They have been the ones doing whatever they like with it. So, after the expiration of the government of the immediate past, we discovered that Nigeria was not properly run. Nigeria was not run well. The resources were massively looted. So there was no way some of these states won't run into some of these embarrassing tendencies.
All right, let me use the word you use. Sorry to butt in there. Recklessness on the part of the governors and all the other, public officers that you just listed out. Has government itself, the federal government, in giving out these bailouts, also been reckless in such a way that the governors, according to them, they are even claiming that, look, they reserve the right to use these funds whichever way that they can, since they are loans, or whichever way they actually want to, since they are loans. Who do you blame for this alleged diversion of the bailout funds?
Well, if you have financial crisis and you approach me to bail you out,
yes,
and I release money to you to bail you out for that purpose, so you can't blame me. If I now give you that money to go and use it for the purpose for which you have come to ask for it, if you don't use it well, then the blame cannot come to me.
Is it not in your place to ensure that when I come to you and say, look, I need so amount of money for some specific reasons, to solve some specific problems?
Yes.
Is it not in your place to say, look, okay, now these are the systems that must be in place to ensure that you don't use this money for anything else?
Especially when these has a track record of
recklessness,
exactly
financial recklessness.
You see, let me tell you the truth. There is still acute level of impunity in the system. The political class, the people in the political class in Nigeria are not afraid of anything. They are not afraid of the content of our laws. They are not afraid of what our law says. They are not even afraid of doing things right. They just believe that they can do whatever they like. And that has been the order of the day in Nigeria. You see, I don't need to monitor you. I don't need to monitor you if you come to me that you have a problem and the content of the problems were stated out and I saw it and I decided to bail you out. If you are someone of an ideal orientation, ideal mindset, ideal mentality, you should know that what I've released that money for you for should be your priority.
But it's been proven over time that, the ideal has not been the case. And so because the ideal has not been the case, it behooves on you to ensure that these monies are not diverted. That's just what I'm saying.
And when the money is diverted,
yes,
what does the system do about it?
That's
what can the system do about it?
What can the system do?
Since we are running a constitutional democratic system, we have laws, we have rules, but unfortunately, those who make these laws are the ones who are always quick to break them. And when they break them, nothing happens. Even when you take them to the courts, they will still come back smiling at you. They come back living their normal life. So, our judicial system in Nigeria, the political system in Nigeria, the lawmaking system in Nigeria, to me, are the main perpetrators of impunitive tendencies in the country. And until we get that right, nothing is ever going to work in the favor of the common man in Nigeria.
Okay, now there's a report that ICPC found out that Zamfara State, at least one, Zamfara State number one, applied for 30 billion and got about 10 billion. But it wasn't even supposed to apply for the loans in the first place because it didn't need it. So now that such revelations are coming out, what should be the way forward when such kind of revelations are found out?
If you have the mentality that that type of money is part of our national cake, you have that mentality that, okay, this money other states have been going to collect, I also must go and collect my own. Whether I need it or not, it is part of the national cake. Then you will go and apply for it. And when he applied for it, why was he given? Why was there no investigation, proper investigation, as to whether that state needed it or not before it was given? So that...
Now you come to the point that we were trying to raise earlier.
Yeah, so the fact remains that the way the resources of our country have been managed, have been handled, the mentality by which people who run our government have been operating around our resources is all about, when I have my own, I deserve to have my own, And when it is with me, I can do whatever I like with it, whether it's about priority of purpose or not. Now, the state government have been crying that there have been paucity of funds to pay worker salary, gratuities, pensioners are dying, suffering, and the federal government decided in its own magnanimity, decided to bail you out so that the negative effect don't come back on the performance rating of the government at the end of the day. Because if some of these states cannot meet their obligations, everything will come back on the federal government as a federal government who couldn't perform.
Is that not what is happening now? So, only recently, the president, in speaking with some traditional rulers, actually said to the governors, no more excuses. Pay salaries to workers. Some states are owing, even now, after the bailout, up to 6 months, 1 year, and all of that. Is it enough for the president to more or less have this body language of actually pleading with the governors to pay the salaries? Should there be more punitive measures for governors who have diverted this?
You can't punish the governors because they are enjoying immunity.
Okay.
They are under immunity. You can't punish them.
But the immunity is from prosecution.
Yes.
Fine. Besides prosecution, how should government really recover these funds? Well, because all the monies go to federal government in the first place before the other parts are shared. You
see, what I would have preferred in this regard is that the federal government does not hand over these monies to this state government directly. Maybe the federal government would have set up a kind of a board, a committee in all these states where some members of NLC, TUC, Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, Nigerian Labour Congress, in that state could be members. And so the government could now hand over the money to them through that committee for the effective prioritization and utilization of what the money is meant for. If you go ahead to give the state governor directly without anybody monitoring it or supervising it, as the man under impunity, he could decide that this money is not going to go for only workers alone. I have other sectors of the economy in my state that need money. Let me divide it. Whereas that is not the purpose for the money. The purpose for the money is not for you to grow agriculture in your state. It's not for you to build more industry. No. The purpose is that you are owing your staff.
Speaking of which, how sustainable is that when you take huge sums of money to actually solve salary problems? Because it comes back. It's a recurrent problem. Imagine a state actually decided to divert that fund or those funds to agriculture, manufacturing. Wouldn't those be more sustainable than just paying salaries and then you have to come back? President Buhari not too long ago actually called on the governors to begin to think outside the box, to look for other sources of revenue, of income, to be able to solve their many problems, including salaries.
You cannot start growing agriculture in your state when you are owing your staff, the workers, about 5, 6, 7, 8 months. Who are those that will help you grow the agriculture? Is it not the same people you are going to deploy for the services of those development? So when the people you are supposed to deploy for the services of those development you want to grow in your state are hungry, and the white man says an hungry man is an angry man, and when he's angry, it could be an endangered species to that society you are governing upon. So the whole essence of this bailout thing is that the governor should have money to pay their staff. That's all. And when you now have this money and you now say, oh, you don't want to pay it again, it is agriculture you now want to grow, then you are doing something in negation of what the oath of that agreement, the ethics of that agreement is all about. So what I want to say is that for as long as we do not continue to have men and women of the right conscience in charge of our governance, it only takes a man who has conscience to know that my people are hungry. So what I want to say is that for as long as we do not continue to have men and women of the right conscience in charge of our governance, it only takes a man who has conscience to know that my people are hungry. This money I have gone to borrow is for that purpose. Let me pay them so that they can be happy.
And then there's the issue of paying back. That these loans don't come for free. They come with interest. So how, if the states don't have the money to pay the salaries, and they get money from government,
yes,
and they are required to repay these funds,
yes,
where do they get the funds if they're not already beginning to think outside the box and look for other sustainable areas or means?
Well, other monies coming. State generates money. State generates revenue internally. They collect money from the federation account. That is not part of what we are talking about. There are other areas the state could generate money to grow the state. This one is bailout. We all know the definition of bailout. I have a problem, you want to bail me out.
You are in distress.
You are bailing me out for what purpose? The purpose is to pay, at least to alleviate the sufferings of my workers as a palliative measure. Though it is not supposed to be a regime that could be sustained for too long. You know why? If you take bailout funds today, you take it tomorrow, are you going to be taking it forever? So as you take one, you give to your staff, they are happy, then the money you are making from other areas, then you could now be investing this into the fiscal growth, economic fiscal growth of your state. As your state is growing, you'll be getting more money there. For example, if you are growing agriculture now, the money you are making from, you are generating from agriculture, now could now be helping you to be sustaining your worker salaries.
Now,
until
would you suggest that the recovery of this fund should be concentrated on source, when at the time when the monies are being shared, they should get it from source, instead of waiting for the states to pay when they can?
Well, you see, there are requirements given to those states who opt for those loans. The requirement are stated. If you have to go through the requirement first before you agree to take the loan. So I am sure from the requirement, from the conditions to have access to the loans, the state must have been okay. We are not talking about one man when we say state government. We are not talking about one man. The state government comprises people, intellectuals in government, people who would have looked into the pros and cons of what the conditions are before opting to take the loan. So they would have known and also known how to pay back the loans effectively and conveniently before opting to take it. But what we are saying here is that these bailout funds are meant to alleviate the sufferings of the Nigerian workers.
All right, now in the midst of all of these bailout funds that states received, some states actually stood out. States like Jigawa, small states, carved out of Kano State, did not require any bailout fund. Was always paying the workers' salaries, when they were due and all of that. What do we know that Jigawa State was doing well or did well? Or did right?
It's about priority.
Other governors,
it's about prioritizing your responsibilities. If it is the priority of any state governor to make sure that my staff first, my workers first, then any other thing could follow, then we could always record successes like that of Jigawa State. Maybe the governor of the state has known that the best way I can succeed in the governance of this state is to pay, to make sure the workers are settled first. So that is a matter of priority. And also a matter of being responsible. That state governor must have been a responsible man, because I'm not sure if there is anything Jigawa is generating internally that other bigger states that are going to collect these bailout funds cannot generate. So it is a matter of the priority of the government and how responsible, disciplined, financially prudent the government is all about. So I would even have to leave this platform to go and study how governance run in Jigawa State, because I need it to add to my
should make it a
wealth
case.
of information.
A case study.
Public affairs analyst.
National Coordinator, Change Agents of Nigeria, Olukayode Salako. Thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We must allow our laws.
Yes,
to govern us.
exactly.
That's the
And-
real part.
and
conscience.
That really
We
is
should
the
lay
real
more
point.
emphasis on system, not
System.
individuals. Thank you very
Absolutely.
much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Right.